You looked like a little steamship. For many years, I waited for this brand to come to Chile, for someone to bring it here, and luckily, a Chilean company called Reco did. I bought the edge bander and the planer from them. They bring in really good machines. Well, now they've taken a chance and brought in the SawStop brand, which has this technology you're seeing right there. When the blade senses or comes into contact with a conductive material, it automatically stops and saves our hand, a finger, or another part of the body. This saw is super easy to assemble. The truth is that the instructions that come with this tool are super clear and really easy to read. If you want, you can skip this part and go directly to minute 2, second 40 to see when we actually start up the machine and begin to check out the features it has. The mechanism to change the angle of the saw is clearly very well balanced, because it doesn't take any effort and it's a pretty heavy motor. This saw weighs about 55 kilos, almost like a seesaw. And another thing that really stands out is that with just one turn of the crank, the whole blade rises. Look, with my other saw, with the Bosch saw, you need to turn it 24 times. And with this one, just a single turn, just one spin of the crank, and you're done. Now, a valid question is whether you lose precision when raising and lowering the blade, since the turn is so fast. I don't think so. Look, I'm lowering it little by little since the wheel is relatively large. Can you make micro adjustments? So I imagine that this rubber they put here, which is a little softer, has more grip. I imagine they made it like this precisely to have more control over those micro adjustments. At first, it's kind of strange, right? To get used to it, already 10, 12 years working with the same Bosch saw bench, pushing it hard, and now just a simple turn. And wow. Bye. That's great. I really liked it. To get the saw ready to work, we have to grab both handles. Press that brake with your foot once and then pull back and down, and the saw will stand up on its own. And that's it. It's that simple. This detail of the adjustable legs is really nice, especially if you're working on surfaces that aren't perfectly flat. And I think that's going to be the most common case, since this saw is designed to be taken to the job site to work. So by adjusting this, we prevent the saw from wobbling on this side, on the right side. We have this pusher, which is pretty generic, nothing out of the ordinary. And of course, we also have our parallel fence, which is super important on a table saw. There it has that lock. I'm doing this for the first time with you. I'm not cheating. It's my first time using, assembling, and touching this saw. It feels super, super smooth. Here you can see back here, the parallel fence moves with that little wheel. It's an interesting mechanism. I hadn't seen it before. My other table saw had a kind of dovetail here. A grip that would slide along this part, but this one simply apparently with that wheel, which makes it super smooth, very fluid. And it's also interesting how it locks like this. With this, if you notice, we have a little bit of play. So the idea is that when we move this parallel stop, when we fix it, this self-adjusts and stays perfectly parallel with the disc. To have better access, we're going to remove the riving knife, which is this accessory here, which I'm sure you know. It's super important to never remove this accessory, this dorsal fin, since it will prevent kickback. It's also nice that you don't need any tools to remove this accessory. You can simply use this little lever to quickly change our riving knife. On this side, we have 11.5. 11.5 exactly. We also made a good cut. In any case, these parallel stops come with screws for making micro adjustments. In case yours isn't perfectly parallel, this one was really good for extending the table sideways. Super easy. We move it there and it's ready. What happens if we're cutting a piece of wood and the parallel stop is right there? Here, where there's no support, we have this knob here, and by moving it, a kind of metal plate appears underneath that will give us support. This type of cut is super common when we're working with plywood or melamine. And that's it. When we extend the table, we have to use the strip with the red numbers. If we put it back in its place, the scale goes back to the one on top, which is the black numbers. Super easy. The table has two positions, unextended and extended. We also have a compartment here where the guard is stored, pardon the redundancy, and this, which is the miter accessory, will also try it out. Here, these Allen wrenches are included and likely used to adjust the saw. If for some reason we have doubts about whether the material we're cutting with the saw is conductive or not, remember that all conductive materials, like the human body or aluminum, very wet wood, also treated wood, the copper in treated wood, usually makes the material much more conductive, and that can cause the emergency brake to activate. If we have doubts about the material we're cutting, it's best to put the saw in bypass mode. It's super easy. You just have to first activate this switch. We have to wait for the red light to stop blinking. When the green light is solid, the saw is ready to turn on. If we pull this lever back, we will turn on the saw. If we push it, the saw stops. To enter bypass mode, that means the safety will be deactivated. In other words, if we touch the saw with our hand, we will get cut. It won't stop. To activate bypass mode, we have to press here and wait for the red light to turn on once. Then, without releasing this button, pull the lever back, wait for the red light to turn on, and then we can let go. That way, we'll be operating the saw in its bypass mode. If you notice, in bypass mode, the saw operates with the green light blinking. I thought it was really smart how they communicate the modes or the situation the saw is in to the user. Through two lights, one green and one red, they can blink slowly, blink quickly, turn off, or turn on. And depending on those combinations, that's what the saw is telling us. If you doubt it, see how convenient this is. Here's the dictionary, so to speak, of the light combinations. Each combination means something. It's in English, which might be a downside, but you can probably memorize it. The miter guide is set nicely at 90 degrees. In any case, if you set this pointer here at 90 degrees and the cut doesn't turn out to be 90 degrees, it's really easy to make adjustments by loosening this screw here. We're going to cut this piece of walnut, which is really thick. It has a killer knot here, which makes the wood much harder and more difficult to cut. So this is going to be kind of a power test to see how the saw feels. That's a really demanding cut. Those who have worked with walnut will know that it's a really hard wood, especially here in the knots. In any case, it's a new blade, so we're in the best possible conditions to test it. But the fact it can cut walnut this thick, about 2.5 inches, I'm more than satisfied. I'm going to talk to my friends at Recco, who are the ones bringing these beauties here to Chile, to see if we can do a collaboration. They'll send me an extra break and we'll do this sausage test to see if the safety mechanism on this saw really works. You're going to see it a lot. This is the saw that's going to take the central spot in my workshop. This is going to be my saw, hopefully for good, or at least for many years. Down below in the video description, I'll leave the link so you can check it out. This isn't the only model that Recco brought, so you can see the prices, talk to them, and so on. I hope you're all doing well, friends. I hope this review was useful for you, and I'll see you very soon in the next video. Bye-bye.